Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're talking about the one and only beautiful Onyxcoin coin. Okay, now listen, we are in a very interesting spot. The reason why Onyxcoin is in a very interesting spot is because, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting sandwiched, and Onyxcoin needs to decide. Okay. Now you might be confused. What do I mean by getting sandwiched? Well, let me show you. Okay. We remove these wicks, ladies and gentlemen, right? We can see that the black is the sell and the blue is the buy. So we can see we have a nice floor here, this black sell candle. We can see we have a higher black sell candle here. And then we have another one over here, right? We can see that we are continuously going up higher and higher on the weekly, right? This is the weekly chart. This is a W for weekly. And we can see, right, we're gradually lifting up our floor, which is good. This is a good thing. But ladies and gentlemen, on the other side, we can see this is our roof over here, this blue one, okay? And we can see we have this roof, this blue one. Now, what do you notice? Well, from the bottom, right, from the bottom, we are consistently going up higher and higher, right? But from the top, we are getting lower and lower. So we're getting squished, which means Onyxcoin needs to decide. Okay. Onyxcoin needs to decide, and this week is going to be the deciding week because last week, ladies and gentlemen, we had the floor over here, right? We had this black candle, and then this was a higher black candle. And we can see we are literally out of space. Now, currently, we are selling off, right? Currently, we are selling off because when we go look, we can see, right, pretty weak buying pressure and pretty strong selling pressure as of right now. Now, here is the deal, people, right? This is not really an Onyxcoin thing. This is more Bitcoin, okay? Because when we go and look at the Bitcoin chart over here, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, that we do have a gap. Very annoying, right? Very annoying. We have one gap over here that's going to get filled at around $118,400. But then we have another gap at $114,450, which is annoying, right? Which is going to cause coins and cryptos like Onyxcoin to drop. Because even if Bitcoin just drops, say 3.5 to 4%, right? That means altcoins usually drop at least double that, right? Usually altcoins drop double that. We see Bitcoin has gone down 1.62% in the last few hours, and something like Onyxcoin dropped 5.25%. So roughly, like 3 to 4 times more. So not ideal, right? Not ideal. It also doesn't help that Bitcoin dominance is seeing a little bit of a comeback right now, right? This is something we are monitoring because, ladies and gentlemen, this is very important. This will dictate whether or not altcoin season is going to officially start. I know people are saying, oh my God, altcoin season's here, altcoin season's here. We have to realize, right? We are simply retesting on this huge support, right? We kind of had something very similar play out back in like December time, right? People thought altcoin season was starting early, but they didn't realize that we didn't break through a massive zone. And even though the weekly candle was pretty, terrifying 2 weeks ago, and last week candles wasn't anything crazy, at the end of the day, we are still looking to see how we react off of the 60.88%. Okay. Because if we do create a floor over here, right, a low, and then a higher low, and then a couple days later, we have this high, and we create some type of higher high, that's going to be some reversal indication. So altcoins will bleed even harder. Okay. Altcoins will bleed even harder. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, um, it's a double negative. Bitcoin going down, Bitcoin dominance going up. So altcoins will bleed, right? Altcoins will bleed, which may cause a pullback, right? Which will cause a pullback. Now, I'm hoping this is very short lived. And by short lived, I mean a day or two. Because the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, we are here looking to be closing the July candle. And for Onyxcoin at least, right? This is not the most ideal. I won't lie to you, because although the floors are looking nice, right? We have a floor over here and a higher floor over here. We have this high over here, boom, and then we have this high over here, and it does not look that healthy. Okay, it doesn't look that healthy. Now, overall, I'm still bullish on XCN. Even if my life depended on it and I had to buy XCN at this price, and people are like, well, do you think it's going to go up? I'll be like, yes. Yes. You know, we have seen historically before where you have a very weak monthly candle, but then the next monthly candle is an absolute nuke. Or you see like some type of weak monthly candle here. Next month is a little bit of a sell off, but nothing crazy. And then we continue to rise. So, you know, this isn't the end of the world, but in terms of pure technical analysis, it's also not the most ideal. Okay. The biggest thing is I just don't want to lose this key level over here. Okay. This is a very, very nice level. I do not want to start closing below this. Okay. As of right now, we are on a very massive, big support, right? We are kind of, in the middle of it. So this doesn't mean it's the end right away, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's the end. Technically, we could even go lower down to 1.4 cents, and this would still create a higher low, right? We have these lows, and then these lows. So we do have a little bit of wiggle room, right? We do have a little bit of wiggle room. You know, at the end of the day, we can still afford to go 9, 10, maybe in 12%. We can even go technically lower, just as long as we don't close below these zones. Okay, that is going to be the most crucial thing. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm still bullish on Exian. If anything, prices go lower, I will continue to just dollar cost average. When we go and look at something like the coin market cap, and we go to our beloved Exian, right? We will be able to see, ladies and gentlemen, we are ranked 119 in the world, 535 million market cap, 24 million volume in the last 24 hours. And then we can see one final thing before we go and look at the holders, right? Once again, we are not listed on so many exchanges. Coinbase is obviously a big one, but we still have Binance. We still have a couple more to go. So there's a lot of upside potential, right? There's a lot of upside potential. We can see we are at the all-time holders. So people are consistently buying. People are consistently, hopping on the wave. Just 2 weeks ago, we had roughly 900 less holders. And the price action wasn't that crazy in the last 2 weeks. Yes, at one point it did go up, but it's nothing too crazy to the point where it's just bandwagon. This is all organic growth, and this is a very, very good sign. But that is ultimately it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.